So I've been saying for a bit it'd be kind of interesting if we did a weekly MotoNews segment, and I don't think I could have picked a better week to do this.
Yeah, lots of drama this week for sure. I think the people need to know the news from the man who knows everything.
Who? Where?
Clearly me, right?
Exactly.
Clearly me.
Clearly
No.
you. No, there's a lot going on, especially like I'm freaking out today because I'm supposed to fly to Indy here a little bit as a team owner, and I have no clue what we're doing for the rest of the Supercross season.
Yeah, I mean, the rumors that are going around right now are pretty mind-blowing, and I'm interested to see how this all pans out. Luckily for me, I'm not too, into the whole Supercross thing, but you've got to be pretty worried right about now.
Well, you're like me. You follow a lot of different forms of motorsports and racing in general and sports. Everybody saw, of course, NBA canceled. Postponed their season for 2 months. Events everywhere getting canceled. As we're recording this, I think the F1 race in Australia is about to get announced canceled. McLaren pulled out a couple hours ago. The whole event sounds like it's going to be off. First IndyCar opener, no fans. Race might get canceled in general. IndyCar in Long Beach is in jeopardy. I think NASCAR might postpone a few races. It goes on and on. So we've been waiting for Supercross. Everybody saw the announcement yesterday at Seattle. Supercross was off, but my phone's been ringing all morning. It's not good.
Yeah, Indy Supercross, no fans, right? That's the latest update.
That's not official, but all the teams are hearing that we're going to be running in front of no fans this weekend. Empty stadium.
I would like to be there to see it. Is this the first time in history?
We've had some low turnouts a few times, but I think this is going to be a first.
Wow, man. And now what's the rest of the season looking like? What's the most logical outcome here?
So, rumor this morning is that Boston round is in jeopardy, and so is, I believe, the Denver round. At that point, outdoors is only in... Between the Supercross series and outdoors, you only have a 1 week break, so it's pretty hard to reschedule events, especially as state legislation keeps coming in and canceling events. I've heard, in jeopardy, I heard we may not race Detroit next week. If that's the case, I don't think the series would straight up get canceled. I think it might get rescheduled for the fall, but either way, it's going to be weird here after Indy. Nobody really knows what the heck's going on. I'm hoping that when we all get to Detroit, we find out, but to put it very bluntly, this could be the end of the Supercross season for a while.
So I see a lot of problems with postponing the Supercross, right? I mean, for one, if I'm anybody besides Eli Tomac, even if I am Eli Tomac, I'm pretty bummed about it. I mean, I can't imagine Tomac is going to risk 3 months of outdoors for this Supercross title, right? Like, what are the chances that people like Eli Tomac are just going to say screw outdoors and just save it for the fall? Because this is the first time that he's actually like in a good spot to win this championship, and now they're telling him, all right, you've got to go race 12 outdoor races, which are gnarly, before you can get this title.
Nah, they'll all have to do outdoors because of contracts. There's pretty much, for most of the dudes, there's not really a way out of it without costing them. If Eli wanted to, he could, but it would cost him money. It would cost him money. He'd have to pay back sponsors and team, and that's even why I think like the series, some people are freaking out going, the series will just get canceled. For everybody, it's a financial loss if an event gets full-on canceled. If Feld just comes out and goes, we're stopping the series, they have TV contracts they'd have to pay back. They have series sponsors they'd have to pay back because they only did X amount of events on contracts. Even teams in general, mine are more loosely written made than some, but I know like a lot of teams, they're just straight up high-level racing teams. It has to do with how many events you're running. They would all be out money at that point. So while it's messy, the most financially stable position for everybody, especially as now we enter a situation where the economy could get pretty rocky and everybody needs to try to maintain budgets, would be to try as hard as possible to reschedule the events and still pull them off.
Got you. What do you think? Do you think outdoors gets moved up to try and allow for more practice time before Supercross resumes in the fall? Because I know even the topmost guys say that when they start up in Supercross again after the outdoors, they're sketchy, dude. They've got to start on some mellow tracks and kind of work their way into it for a couple months. I would think that going straight from outdoors for 3 months and going straight into a full-on Supercross race would be pretty sketchy.
Most guys do it for Monster Cup. They come off destinations and ride 2 days of Supercross.
Oh, okay.
It depends. It just, it make you unprepared. But, The problem is we're all going to be in limbo for at least 2 or 3 weeks to see what the spread virus-wise is and what it's going to do to state legislation for events, because the problem we're running into with Supercross is, cool, you could run, I mean, it sounds like if you really want to, you could run events behind closed doors per se with no spectators, but a lot of states are limiting this to 250 people and below to put on an event. Between the race teams and Feld staff and the TV crew alone, we're over that. So outdoors would run into the same problem in many states during this initial 30-day ban. So I think we'd all be on, say it gets worst case scenario, we do Indy this weekend and then we're done. I still say we don't go racing for at least a month.
Is there, so the 250 people limit at an event, what is the like radius around the stadium that they would have to be in? I'm assuming you could get just the bare bones TV crew, racers, and like one mechanic in the stadium for the actual race, but like what defines how far away from the stadium, or like,
I don't know how exactly, but no matter what, each team between truck drivers, team managers, mechanics, nobody's gonna go in and go, oh, we're just gonna send a rider and a mechanic, and that's not gonna happen. Teams at that point are just gonna be like, screw the event in general. Once you actually break down what it takes to correctly operate the event, you're gonna go past that limit. That's why a lot of motorsports racing, a bunch of them are just gonna put everything on pause, because there's like no way to do it properly. When you really break it down, it wouldn't be what it's supposed to be.
So Michael Lindsay, the media man in motocross, what would you do if you were in charge of making the decisions here? Are you for canceling it, or are you for rescheduling? What's your take on this?
Reschedule, because I have to deal with sponsors too. No, reschedule makes the most overall sense for the health of teams and people's jobs, even because like so many guys in motocross, supercross are contract employees. What does suck though from rescheduling from the point of a small team is stretching that budget through. If you're a small supercross only team, is like, at what point do you tell your riders you're not riding for a while, because we weren't scheduled to have enough parts and shit to make it this many months of off season, technically like almost like an off season again. So that all gets really, really tricky. And then it's hard because some guys aren't racing outdoors, some might be going to Canada. It definitely gets weird, and it's going to be, if I had my choice and say of it, I say reschedule to the off season, but you try to pull double headers, condense the weekends as close as possible. So if we end after this weekend, say we have to do 6 more races, try to schedule 3 double headers in the off season or something. I would have to look at it more carefully because you have a mix of East and West events. But I would think try to get them all knocked out, but get them knocked down in a very timely manner, not spread out 6 whole weeks.
Yeah, I like the idea of the 2 nights in a row sort of thing. I think that would be pretty cool. How long do you think after outdoors do they wait before they start those back up? And then, does Monster Cup still happen? Do the Australian Supercross races still happen?
Well, Aussie happens no matter what. We don't affect that. Well, it depends on the virus. I can't say if Aussie would go to schedule. Depends how, that's pretty far out, so it's pretty hard to say. The Aussie series would still probably conduct. Monster Cup, maybe they would knock it back a little bit to make a gap. The doubleheader thing's already being talked about, because the rumor this week is with the Seattle cancellation is that we would do a doubleheader at Vegas, which we'll see if that's the harsh part, is we have a short amount of time before Supercross starts, and if the season wanted to continue on, you would have to condense so many events to doubleheaders, and every week would be a risk, because you're planning on okay, well, Nevada hasn't passed state legislation yet. We could still run in Vegas, but they're talking about canceling maybe like NFL draft and stuff. So it's like, it could be the week of the race, and then they'll be like, oh, we're also pulling legislation. Then that event's done. The best option for the series, everybody financially, the racers have their best opportunity, is just pull the trigger as early as possible and say, we're done. We're done. We're like all the other, we're a small sport in comparison to the big sports, but you also have to follow the lead of look what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is saying we're done for a while. This is not going to work.
Yeah, like you said, the NFL draft being canceled.
Yeah, but could be.
Well, could be canceled. The basketball season getting delayed. Motocross racers are pretty badass, and I think we like to think that we're better than all the other sports, but there's only so much we can do, especially if with legislation coming in, canceling things.
If an NBA game, or if baseball isn't allowed to go into stadium, we're probably not going to be allowed to either.
Yeah.
We're not going to go, hey, we're the dirtbag rats. We don't care You know what happens to us. Let's just go. And I get bummed because, like, I understand fans' frustration seeing some of the Seattle announcements. People are just so, like, this is so stupid. Why are we freaking out? You can argue politically all day what side you're on, how severe you think this is or isn't. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is, like I said, all other major sports are doing this. We're not going to be able to get away with differently. We need to plan for what's best for our industry and our sport, because we can't just be like, we're going to continue on. It's not going to work.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, have you been hearing anything from the actual riders themselves about what their opinion on it? Because, I mean, like I said, no matter who I am, like if I'm Eli Tomac, I don't want to have to wait. He's on a roll right now, and that's obviously going to get put on halt until later. Or if I'm a dude like Dean Wilson or Aaron Plessinger, who maybe has had kind of a rocky season so far, but they're starting to, set on fire now. What's that going to do to their season when it starts back up? Like, how do the riders feel about this?
Just seeing a couple Instagram comments, like Supercross Fine posted up the Seattle thing. Roxon was stoked that they did it, but as usual, none of us get asked about this at all. He's like, would have been nice to have been asked before you did it, but yeah. I'm all for it. And Baggett commented that, he was kind of on the end that because a few fans were snapping at him, or at, I think, Roxon, he come back, he's the same thing. He goes, you think we're going to keep operating if NBA F1 and IndyCar is not operating? Like, it doesn't work like that. So I think most riders understand. I think all of us are just on the boat of, we need to make a quick decision. None of us want to drag this out week to week, because it's a pain on like I said, it creates so many further down the road problems. I think everybody just wants to get a phone call right now, sit down, discuss it, and pull the trigger on the decision is, I think, where most people stand in whether it's team or riders, etc.
Yeah. And is there any sort of like communication really happening, or what group is responsible for making that decision? And are there people collaborating, or are we just kind of in limbo waiting right now?
I'm hearing from other media guys that Feld's talking to like factory OEM teams. I don't get those kind of communications. Apparently,
no.
I asked. I shot a couple emails over and some texts. I haven't heard anything yet.
Next year,
hopefully. No, it would be totally up to Feld's call at this point. AMA, FIM have no bar decision on, I think, if the race continues on or not. I think that's up to Feld. And like I said, then Feld also has weighing above them is like state legislature or, stuff like that they have to deal with. Even if they wanted to, even if on their end they wanted to be like, yeah, let's do this. State says you can't do it, you can't do it.
Right. Has there been any talks about, I mean, outdoors is not that far away now, just what, 8 weeks or, somewhere around that ballpark. Yeah. It could very well roll over into outdoors too.
Yeah, it depends on, especially the opening 2 rounds being in California. And I'm actually surprised, like I know the San Francisco area itself pulled a bunch of stuff. Before the NBA block, the Golden State Warriors were going to play without audience anyways. California is usually the type of state from a political sense would do something like this, so I wouldn't be surprised if when we get to outdoors, it depends how the next couple weeks go, but if it's spreading and they want to, that could affect the first 2 rounds outdoors very easily. It is far enough out though, you would cross your fingers and go, oh well, maybe if all these measures everybody's taking, we can continue on when everything kind of gets handled here in the next month or two, but everything in limbo.
Is there any more like lenience with an outdoor setting where we're not, in an enclosed stadium, a lot of contact? Is there?
No, because they're canceling outdoor concerts and everything. That whole, like, if a state says you can't have more than 250 people at an event, that affects everything. Indoor, outdoor, doesn't matter. I mean, you have like some people are suggesting, oh, move it to this state, move it to that. I saw people saying, oh, bring the race back to Texas. Texas just canceled, what is it, their livestock rodeo? Sorry, I'm not big into that stuff. It's
only the biggest event of the year. It's fine.
For Texas, for like over 100,000 people at one of the scenes for like all like livestock and rodeo related stuff. Like that's done. So yeah, it's each state is a week-to-week risk. You could say right now, like, oh, well, let's just run here in 2 weeks. By the time we get to that 2 weeks mark, that state may have pulled the same thing. We may be done. So.
Yeah, I feel like it's inevitable. Like, it's a pretty easy decision, and I think it would be the right decision to just say, look, we don't know what's going on. We can't plan everyone's schedule week to week and have people running all over the country, not knowing where to go. I feel like it would be a great decision for them to just call it right now and just say, you know what, let's just focus on outdoors. We'll put this back into the fall. I think that's the best decision for everyone involved, but obviously I don't work for Feld, so.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I would usually, I planned that we would talk about in a MotoNews segment like this would be rider injuries and how they're going to affect their next couple of rounds, but that whole thing's in limbo. We had Justin Brain break his hand, and our boy Jerry Robin this weekend both broke their hands at Daytona.
Pray for Jerry.
Pray for Jerry. I feel bad for Jerry now. So they were both, Jerry was going to miss the rest of the season anyways. JB was going to miss 3 to 4 rounds, I think, with his. So, I mean, guys like that, of course, are like,
stoked. Yeah,
I get a second chance.
Could very well make the season way more interesting, as long as people stay healthy for outdoors, we could get a full roster again, because the 450 class definitely was weaning out a little bit. A lot of people getting hurt with Osborne and Brayton and a couple other dudes, so
it gives a lot of guys a chance to come back. Like I said, if they can make outdoors healthy, it gives Tickle Savacci a really good shot to show their stuff. It gives like our boy like Chris Blows being able to come back in. Gives JB a couple solid ending rounds. It just gives quite a few guys like Jordan Smith Jordan wouldn't make back time. That was the other piece of news. Jordan Smith did injure his knees last week, I think. Severed ACL, torn meniscus, torn MCL. He's gonna have knee surgery, so he's done for a while. So no matter what his hopes are, he wouldn't. It depends how far we pushed back that soupy thing, but I don't think he would make it back for that. Guys like McAdoo that had a rough beginning of the season. There's just a lot of people it could help. Jimmy Dakotas. Let's just say the JGR squad in general and my team in general both would greatly benefit.
Definitely.
Greatly. I feel bad saying that, but truth. So I think the only people who are probably bummed at this point if it was a non-cancellation would be the dudes leading their championships. Those are probably the only 3 that would be like, man,
pretty
really,
bummed,
really wish we would just call it where it is.
Do you think that having these races in the fall could maybe help some people going into the 21 season too? I know Tomac normally takes a couple races to warm up. What kind of gap is there going to be from the end of the 20 SX to the start of 21? Is it going to maybe help some people get warmed up for those races, or is it kind of just non-factor?
It could mess with a lot of guys' schedule, like say Justin Brayton or Chris Blows that need to go to Australia as well. They're usually contract to go there. They would be like in a super pin scenario of finish U.S. season from this year, go to Australia, and then come back. The other thing would really make weird is transitional season. You have a lot of riders. If their contract's up, it's done the first week of October. You would end up with a big mess of riders if they were in the process of switching teams. It could really mess with that transfer of when they're supposed to switch to teams, when their contract begins and ends, how they're getting paid, their testing time, even how some riders are going to get hired. It's going to put a lot of things in mess if it does it. So I don't know. Either way, the whole series could just get so odd if we reschedule versus cancel. There's so many things that could go either way.
That's also kind of the time that all the new bikes are coming out too. What is that going to play any factor in it? Are people going to be on new bikes, or are they just going to?
A lot of them no, because you wouldn't have done. If you raced outdoors, you will still have not done your Supercross development. If you have a new bike out and your team's out of a championship run, it could be a good opportunity to get preseason under race scenario testing done. If you're really out of a championship, or if you're a multi-rider team and you have one rider really out of it, you could stick them on fairly new bike, which this year would be like Kawasaki KX250 will be all new. Honda's got an all new 450. With Kenny being in the championship hunt though, no way you put him on the new bike.
Yeah, could that be a little interesting where Kenny doesn't ride it, but maybe the Moto Concept guys ride it? That could be kind of weird.
The other hard part with a team of that level is, once again, the bike just shows up. Are you going to have enough parts to make it race ready? Especially with a big overall change. So it could go either way. Teams that only have a small update to their bike, it would be good. An overhauled bike could be really tough to race on such short notice.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that Honda would have some really valuable testing time if they put the MCR guys on it for those couple races, or maybe even put JB on it and got some time on it, But
I would put, you know what? But it depends. Sorry, I was going to say Chase plays race championship. Yeah, I would put probably JB on it. Because even with MCR, they could race it, but they run a different engine package. There's only so much data you could get back. It would mostly be chassis and suspension. If I was Honda, I would put say Brain on the bike.
Man, that would be weird seeing 2 completely different bikes under the HRC rig. I feel like that's never been done before either.
I don't know about their level, but Moto Concepts had to do it the year they had JB. They had Lessie and Freeze on the last year bike and JB on the new year bike for all Supercross.
Man, this is just creating all sorts of weird, unforeseen
if you go down the
scenarios.
list, there's a million things it could do to everybody's program.
Do you see any benefit? Like maybe this is going to kind of mold the schedule for the future. I know there's always kind of talks of people trying to do a separate like summer Supercross series or whatever. Is this maybe going to pave the way for something like that?
No, if anything, there's always rumors of Feld wanting to expand their series and some stuff. This could put a lot of things on ice to recover for a year or two because, like I said, there could be really large economic consequences from this whole thing in, say, the motocross industry being a hobbyist-based sport. Like it could throw a lot of things in flux. I would say more than anything, it would maybe make the sport mellow down for a year or two and just hunker down and try to get through it. I don't know if it would change the schedule very much because I can imagine as everybody's running into this scenario right now, running Supercross after outdoors, some kind of split schedule is honestly a complete nightmare. It is. So I don't see anybody jumping up and down later going, man, this was a great idea.
What about like the double night program? Do you think maybe this could pave the way for that to make its way into the regular schedule? I mean, if these two, if they go well both nights, that's more revenue for Feld and everything. I don't see why they wouldn't.
It could be interesting because they always did it with Arena Cross to see how a doubleheader is. You guys see if the audience is going to come back both nights. Arena Cross level, it's maybe a little bit easier because the stadiums were smaller. It's easier to fill. Supercross is big and you got to make it make sense for how many concessions people are there, how many people are on staff. If
it's even safe for the riders, I would imagine after a night of Supercross, maybe someone like Tomac's fine, but maybe some of the other guys are a little tuckered out.
Yeah. I think like this is just my opinion. I mean, you look at MXGP races, both days, nationals, we used to, the guys can do it.
Yeah.
Tour de France guys freaking race 20, 6-7 days in a row. We could get used to it. At first it would hurt many, especially privateers that maybe aren't as stable of a program. Top guys will adjust. If it became a regular thing, they'd figure it out. It's just like anything else. They can adapt. They can make it work. Bigger teams are always an advantage, though, equipment-wise, what they have laying around to make it work 2 nights in a row, staff personnel to get everything re-prepped, just even the riders for therapy people around to kind of help them recover, things like that. It would put big emphasis on some of the big teams on how well they'd be able to cope with 2 nights of racing in a row. Yeah. But I think, I can't think of anything else interesting. Can you think?
Dude, I can't wait to see how the next couple of months play out. How, the rest of the season's going to go.
Next 48
outdoors.
Hours.
Yeah. The next 48 hours will be big, but then just seeing, how it all works out. If outdoors are affected, I hope for my sake and your sake that it's not, but...
Bro, you could race Supercross still this year.
Don't even put those thoughts in people's heads.
Comment section. Should he race if we reschedule?
Dude, I'm looking forward to Supercross a lot. I just want to make sure that I don't go out there and wad myself. The injury list is already pretty devastating this year, and I feel like my decision to wait until next year is great.
If it's already wasted, that means you have a better chance of doing better.
That is true, actually. Maybe. We'll see.
Positivity.
All right.
Positive.
Roll the credits now.
No, we're going to try to do this every week, back and forth between me and yours channel. I think most weeks we'll normally talk a little bit more about upcoming race, injury list, what's new with teams, bikes, stuff like that. But for this week, sadly, we really only had one subject to talk about because it's the overruling subject that is going to decide the next 6 months of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested to hear what all you guys think about this, whether people are going way too crazy, whether they're right in the fact that they're canceling or postponing things. Like, we definitely want to hear what you guys think about this, and maybe what you guys want to see in the next couple of episodes. Like I said, or like Michael said earlier, we want to make this like a weekly thing and bring you guys some moto news from like all the different moto outlets, whether it's MXGP, US, motocross, supercross, anything like that. So if there are any segments or anything or any news you guys specifically want us to cover, let us know.